It's very cheap, this food, and it's on the shelf and stable for a long period of time. Very, very profitable. Huge amount of money in it. They want you to eat this rubbish because it's great for them, but it's not great for you. There are so many different things that could be making you want to eat carbohydrates. And of course, you're getting into addiction and cravings, wanting that sweet taste, the cephalic response, for instance.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've got a very special guest today with me, as you can see. His name is Stephen Thomas. He's known as Coach Stephen on YouTube. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing very well, and it's nice to see you, Lee.
You too. I've just got a few basic questions for you, but if you could start off by letting us know how you started your journey, how you found carnivore.
It's my 60th year, so in May I'm 60, and I was born in 1964. And the reason that's important is because I didn't start my carnivore journey until I was 55, May 5 years ago. So I'm coming up to 5-year carniversary, as they say. And at age 50, I started a low-carb journey. And in between the being 50 and 55, I went from low-carb to keto. So similar journey to many people, low-carb, keto, and then carnivore. And the carnivore was a 30-day challenge. And here I am nearly 5 years later. That's how good it is. Right. So, but life wasn't always plain sailing for me health-wise. For the last 10 years, I don't think I've been to a doctor. I haven't had a day off sick. I don't get coughs and colds. And I'm pretty vital. I have gained probably 9 pounds of muscle in that time. And everything's hunky-dory. I don't take any medications, don't take any tablets or anything like that. So up until 50, I was the complete reverse of what I'm eating now. So I avoided fat. I avoided red meat. I ate cereal, skim milk, blueberries, freshly squeezed orange juice, tons of fruit, tons of veg, didn't smoke, didn't drink, and ended up with a coronary artery calcium score of 639. I was pre-diabetic. I had terrible skin rash that was like somebody got a strawberry, put it on my head. I had athlete's foot since a teenager, which I tried every single thing to get rid of and couldn't. And all of those things have cleared up. I had lower left quadrant pain as well. With colonoscopy, thought I was going to die because both my parents died when I was young. My mother of colon cancer, even though she followed the food guidelines to a T and was having bran flakes and skim milk and all that stuff that I just mentioned. She had a 9 pound cancer growth in her colon. So all those vegans out there that think this way gives you colon cancer and their way of eating doesn't, you're wrong. And I've seen it close at hand. Also lost a girlfriend to breast cancer who also was doing all the vegan stuff. So anyway, I know that's an N equals 2 we just said, and I'm an N equals 1, but there's plenty of anecdotes like that. But the pre-diabetes was quite interesting because at that time I had qualified as a specialist practitioner in obesity and diabetes. And it was in my later life that I was qualified in physiology, health sciences, those sort of things, and did the specialist practitioner thing. And in the classroom, I can remember when I was being taught as a mature student that, which is an oxymoron, by the way, that you have to dose insulin in relation to carbohydrates. And I put my hand up because I didn't come from the medical profession. I wasn't indoctrinated. It seemed a easy question. Well, if you want to lower the insulin, why don't we just lower the carbohydrates? And of course, I got laughed out of the place that you could possibly even think that. Many things I'd encountered like that. Before that, I was an advanced personal trainer. I trained people. One person got to the Olympics, javelin thrower, who was a type 1 diabetic. So I've always been interested in sport and rehab and health. And even then, I found training her very difficult because she was constantly into the fast-acting carbohydrates and eating that way. And this was before I'd actually did it myself, and it seemed very problematic. The book by Richard Bernstein, The Diabetes Solution, he's a type 1 diabetic, talks about the law of small numbers being the best thing. Well, her numbers were just through the roof all the time and then plummeting through the roof. Anyway, we got to the Olympics, so we managed it. But the point being, it was carbohydrates that made life really troublesome. So all of these things in my past were bubbling up to me deciding to take a dive into low carb. And I did that. And of course, what happened was my weight got better. My lower left quadrant pain went. My pre-diabetes went. I haven't got a big strawberry mark on my forehead. I don't have athlete's foot. I think I've reversed aged. The hair that you see here used to be grey, and when I first started doing YouTube, I'd have to get a mascara thing because I was, a bit of a poser, and I didn't want all this grey because it looked very untidy, actually, more than anything. This is how it looks. So a bit of reverse aging going on. I've spoken to you before. You did a brilliant interview on my channel, and I think I might have mentioned my hearing as well. I lost my hearing in my 20s, around the same time I lost my parents, or I lost my mum and my girlfriend. My dad died when I was 10. And I've always had my hearing measured since my 20s, and it's always got progressively worse. And then maybe in my 40s, I started seeing the same audiologist at the same place with the same machine. And that's quite important when we talk about the next thing. And my hearing got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And still I started doing low carb. And then the amount it got worse slowed up a bit. It was still getting worse, but not as bad. And then by the time I went carnivore, it sort of leveled out a little bit, and then it actually peaked, started to go up. And then the audiologist, who I became quite friendly with, obviously, because I've seen him, once a year at least, said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing an all meat diet." Well, it can't be that. I'm like, well, it can be, because there's nothing else that's changed, and I'm getting older, so theoretically my hearing should get worse. It isn't brilliant. I still wear hearing aids. I still have to special equipment to hear you, and I can't use a telephone like a normal person. That's me. I'm an advanced personal trainer. I'm a specialist practitioner in obesity and diabetes. I do have an honours degree in physiology and health sciences, and I'm also a qualified phlebotomist because I like to know stuff. And that was one of the things I was finding really difficult, was relying on other people's interpretation of bloods, and I wanted to have a bit more of a sort of input. So I set up a private blood service. We used to do private blood tests, basically, and in that clinic I'd have lots and lots of data, and the people that were doing really well were all low carb. I only had 2 people ever faint giving blood. Both were vegans. Most of the nutritional deficiencies or the biochemistry, or many different readings, if people came in and they were low carb or keto, which was still in its infancy when I started doing the bloods, they would always be healthier. They would always have slightly better bloods, but there would always be a couple of anomalies. So I started to research that. Things like the blood urea nitrogen being slightly high, but that's always slightly high if you eat slightly more protein, for instance. The HbA1c going up, even though the average blood glucose is brilliant and the fasted glucose is brilliant, the fasting insulin is brilliant. Well, then we got into what's called a reticulocyte count, which shows that your red blood cells are lasting longer, so you get an artificially higher HbA1c. So there's lots of things that can be explained when you actually understand that the normative ranges in bloods, the average ranges, so somebody could be low or high, and in between just allegedly normal, they're not optimal ranges. So they're based on people eating 60% carbohydrates. Also, they tend to be not athletes or in the prime of life when you give blood. That's where that data has come from. It's come from people that aren't great with their health a lot of the times. So it's not the best of things. It's it's a rule of thumb, good gauge, or whatever you want to say, a reasonable thing to start. Then looking at diagnosis and all this sort of stuff. But the doctor's comments on top of the blood labs would always be based on the mainstream narrative. There would never be nuance to the person's own experience. So I really got interested in that. I've written a book about it. So yeah, I did this book, Guide to Blood Tests, which you can get. It's fantastic, lots and lots and lots of information in it. But it does explain sort of the things I just mentioned, life-changing. One of them in particular is the eGFR, so the kidney function test, which is the estimated glomerular filtration rate. The posh way of saying how much does your kidney filter in a given time. And because you're eating more protein and you have more creatinine, waste from the protein metabolism, your eGFR can be quite alarming. And it's not really an actual direct reading. It's not really looking at a filtration rate. It's looking at other numbers and making an assumption based on those other numbers. And you can get a different test called the cystatin C test. And I've had people come to me and say, my eGFR is making my doctor freak out. Is my kidney function? Is it packing up? And then I say, well, try the cystatin T test and get a more direct, more accurate measurement of your filtration rate. And 100% of the time, it stops the doctor panicking because the filtration rate is fine, because it's not based on a calculation looking at metabolism or the waste metabolism of protein, for instance. It's actually looking at the filtration rate of the kidney. And that book has a couple of personal testimonials in there from one particular person who just couldn't believe that they were being put up for possible kidney transplants and lots of worry about medications for the rest of their life. And a simple test actually proved that it wasn't needed at all. And nobody in their mainstream medical sort of arena that she was dealing with even thought about doing this test. And that's not a very good practice, because the whole point of blood tests is a starting point, and then you do further diagnosis, and then you get into differential diagnosis, and you look at different levels. Clinical presentation, really important. And that all went by the wayside. They just looked at this one number, which is estimated, not a direct reading, and based on the supposition about metabolism of protein. And her whole life was in turmoil. Anyway, sorry, a little bit of a rant there, but it's something I'm very passionate about. I'm doing a talk in a couple of months' time about this at the War on Health, and it is an interesting subject for me. And I think that we need to spread the word that these normal ranges are not optimal ranges, and there's no nuance in relation to nutrition.
What piqued your interest? What made you dive into phlebotomy?
What piqued my interest was the fact that what I was told, or what the doctor's comments did not relate to the person in front of me. It didn't seem to stack up. And I think Dr. Paul Mason has done quite a funny presentation for Low Carb Down Under, where he takes an incredibly fit looking guy who couldn't get any insurance because I think either his BMI or one of the numbers was out. And BMI is another one that's nothing to do with phlebotomy, but always been a frustration for me because I'm quite muscly. Officially, my BMI is 26. Well, it should be between 20 and 25, allegedly. But every athlete, anyone that's got a bit of muscle, will tell you that when they do BMI, they're told they're overweight. And you can see their abs. You can see lots of definition. They're really chiseled. So the numbers were getting to me because they didn't tally to what I was seeing. And the people on low carb diets who were reversing diabetes, and just to clarify on the word reverse, they're reversing their diabetes. It doesn't mean it's cured, because there is a problem with carbohydrate metabolism for that person. If they go back to eating the rubbish that got them there in the first place, then it will come back. But if you eat properly, then you don't get it. And it's that simple. People get off their medications eating this way. I've got over 1,000 clients that would back me up on this. So I've got 140 success stories on video. So it is definitely not just anecdotal. There's plenty of data, plenty of science behind it as well, and common sense and physiology. So I wanted the results to match the person, and it didn't do that very much, especially when someone was particularly good with their diet and very healthy.
What's a typical client? What's a very common demographic of people with certain ailments and symptoms that you feel like you have to deal with, in your profession?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that. It's quite varied, actually, but you can, off the top of my head, because I wasn't prepared for that, I can give you some very broad brush. So normally women over 40 who have come from calorie restriction or low fat diets may have problems with their thyroid, or they may have problems with yo-yo weight, up and down in the past. So that's quite common. That comes up worldwide. I thought, because I'm the UK Carnivore, that I would only get people in the UK, but over 50% of my clients are from other places in the world, like America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Korea. So it's been brilliant, actually. Russia, Germany, loads. So, but all across the globe, you get the same problems, which is the point there. So if they're 40 plus and they've got that background, vegan, vegetarianism, low fat, calorie restriction, tried everything is a really common thing that they say. I've tried everything, nothing's worked. This is my last chance. That would be one sort of cohort, I suppose. And then you've also got the gentlemen with the beer bellies, who have fallen for the trap that they're too old now. Nothing can happen. I'm in my 40s. I can't get thinner. I can't get fitter, which is ridiculous. My oldest client is 92. You can build muscle, you can lose weight, you can lose body fat, and you can change your life. It tends to be a lot of diabetics in that group, a lot of type 2 diabetics. I do have a fair few type 1, even though, which is surprising because the percentage of type 1 to type 2, there's a lot more type 2 people. But I think because of my interest in phlebotomy and diabetes, I get a lot of type 1s as well. So in that group, I will have those. They're quite keen to add muscle and add bone density. So it is. So to be honest, Lee, it is quite varied. I can't really put too many people in a box because there's also people with addictions and cravings, which is a big thing, and that's across the board. That is absolutely across the board. And finally, skeptics. There are very many. I got one later today who they just don't believe this can work. They come in very skeptical, very cynical about it, thinking that bread and potatoes, they can't be that bad, can they? It's all right for a bit of cake and this, that, and the other. And then you have to unpick all that and say, well, what you're doing is you're justifying what big food wants you to eat. And it's very cheap, this food, and it's on the shelf and stable for a long period of time. Very, very profitable, huge amount of money in it. They want you to eat this rubbish because it's great for them, but it's not great for you. And you'll get dietitians on board saying that cereals are better than beef, which is ridiculous. M&Ms are better than beef, and all this sort of stuff. So I think I try to get the common sense back because there's just no way. What was it the other day? Somebody did a brilliant video about the Beyond Meat burgers and got all the ingredients and actually made one in front of people on the camera and was adding this, that, and the other. It was absolutely disgusting gloop. And to me, that's really obvious that that's not going to be healthy, especially with the canola oil being part of any seed oil is absolutely disgusting and not good for your health. But so I get into those sort of people, and it's amazing how many of those turn around, and those sort of people tend to be the ones that, because it's so good. I'm just talking about this recently with my wife today in the car, actually, about one person that wanted to get pregnant and was a vegetarian or vegan, actually, and they couldn't, and then they started to eat fish, and then they started to eat meat, and the partner wasn't happy. The husband wasn't very happy that she was doing this, and she just changed her life. She got really healthy and fit, and skin was wonderful, and then she got pregnant, and now the husband's like, I'll try it. So he tried some steak and he went back to eating meat, and both of them are absolute converts, and they want to shout it from the rooftops and tell everybody about it. And that's, the biggest problem I have to face is telling people you've got to be not like the vegans, not like the vegetarians. You've just got to keep it to yourself and let people come to you and ask you, wow, you're looking good. What are you doing? And, that is very common. At least once a week, I get someone saying they want to shout it from the rooftops and tell everyone, wake up, you need to eat proper food.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think many of us create a channel, because I believed it enough to take a big leap of faith, but I think when it starts to work, you think, oh, wow, okay, there's something real about this, and then you can't help it. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's not something you want to go around and just shove in someone's face before you've even asked them how they are, kind of thing. We don't want to do what the other guys do. If you were to just guess roughly a percentage of your clients, how many have to go very pure with carnivore? What kind of percentage do you feel like have, 10, 15, 20 grams of carbohydrates remaining in the diet?
Oh, yeah. Well, I never do that. I never ever talk about tracking like that in that way. Wow. 2% maybe.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
really small.
Okay,
Yeah, because the thing is, it isn't about the elimination diet for many people. If you've got really serious autoimmune issues, it is worth doing the elimination diet. But with the lion diet, the beef, salt, and water. But with that way of eating, I still feel that you can bring variety back in once you've healed. But this isn't talking about going back to the things that got you there in the first place. It's talking fish and poultry and more eggs, or even dairy in some cases. So it's not how I work. It's more about being intuitive. And I get some people to WhatsApp me their meals every day because they're not sure about portion size. But the best sort of tracking, and it is tracking, is looking in the mirror and how you feel, how you're sleeping, those sort of things. Because the whole point of carnivore is to be easy, and it is. It's totally easy. There's not much preparation. There's not much cleaning up. Once you get into cooking with ghee or tallow or butter or lard, you realize that you don't need all these wonderful cleaning appliances full of chemicals and stuff, because all the animal fats just work beautifully and they're easy to clean up. And cooking in like an air fryer or just pan frying, there's no prep. There's 15-minute meals are quite easy, or you can have a nice slow cooked leg of lamb. And I think that's the thing. I want people to enjoy the food. I know it isn't there for entertainment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually enjoying the food, looking forward to it, and it being sort of very nutritious, but also very tasty. So I think I tend to try and keep away from that sort of prescriptive way of dealing with things. I just ask people what they like eating. It's from the carnivore way of life, and then say to them, go for it. I mean, if you want to do a slow transition, you can, and I'm quite happy for that. So if they say, well, I'm still having pasta, rice, you can tweak things, brown rice. You say, well, you could go to white rice, and then you could get off the rice completely. So there's lots of different ways of transitioning. I do think that if you can transition in a slow-ish way, but get there quite quickly, if that's not too much of a sort of dichotomy, it's going to be great for you to get through the alleged keto flu that some people get, which is normally down to just losing water and losing electrolytes. I think it's actually much easier than most people make out. I really do. I think the biggest problem I have is it's not the magic wand that some people expect. I'm a week into carnivore. Why isn't everything fixed? Well, you've been eating the wrong way for 30 years, so 1 week's not going to do it. But even in that case, I'll say, is there anything better? Oh yeah, there's a little bit. I sleep better. My skin's slightly better. So even in a week, I notice something. So to answer your question directly, sorry, people are thinking, whoa, this guy rambles. I don't do the 20 grams of carbs thing at all. I don't think I've ever said that to anyone.
Sure. Okay. So you don't feel like there's any exceptions that feel they almost have to have a level of carbohydrates? Because I do find a lot of this in the comments that some people just say, well, I've tried it for 3 months, but I just can't do life optimally without a level of carbohydrates. What do you think's going on there, perhaps, with those individuals?
Well, the most common one is I take carbs before I go to sleep because I can't sleep without carbs. But actually, it's not the carbs; it's the insulin response that's making that person able to sleep. So you could actually look at the timing of the meals, for instance, the volume of the meals, what the food is that they're eating, what they're drinking, what their electrolyte state is. There's more to it, which is why the coaching really works, because those things, if someone's doing the same thing off their own back for 3 months and it's not worked, they're probably doing something not quite right for their physiology. So it might be that they're eating too soon in the day, kicking out their dawn phenomena, they're slightly higher blood glucose in the morning because they are eating too soon, or it could be that they're not eating soon enough. It is very individual, this bit. It's down to their physiology, how their body clock works, their situation, their current state of their body composition. There's so many different things, stress levels, other things that they're doing, exposure to devices. So there's lots and lots of things that could be stopping it. It could be just the wrong food. I mean, you don't have to have beef. You don't definitely have to have organ meat. Some people have too much organ meat, and then you get a problem with copper, not vitamin A. So that's just another little nuance. So I think you don't need, well, firstly, you don't need carbohydrates because your body makes them. So the people saying that I have to eat some glucose, well, your body makes it. So why do you need to eat it? You don't need to eat it. So that's the first thing. Secondly, what is the carbohydrate doing that is helping you? And then we find out how to do that without the carbohydrates. So like I say, it could just be the fact that they get this little spike of insulin, which is then helping the production of neurotransmitters that are going to help you sleep. Whereas just a little bit of fat might do that, or some snack late at night. But I don't want people to watch this and think, oh, I'm not sleeping, I'll eat late at night, that'll sort it, because it could be some other thing. It could be coffee, too much caffeine. So you're getting cortisol response. It could be stress at work, the boss you hate that you can't punch in the mouth, whatever it is, person on the road cutting you up in the car. There are so many different things that could be making you want to eat carbohydrates. And of course, you're getting into addiction and cravings, wanting that sweet taste. Sweeteners can keep that kicking on. So you could be thinking you're being brilliant, but you're using an artificial sweetener in a way that's keeping your desire to eat sweet things going, the cephalic response, for instance. So you don't need carbs. I don't think I've ever had it. Maybe once in 5 years, I've said to someone, we'll try a little bit of carbs, see what happens, and then we'll take it from there. But it was never to keep that in there permanently. It was just to see what happened and then how we could work our way around it. But there's no such thing as an essential carb. There is no carbohydrate need in the human diet.
Yeah. This might be a bit of a funny question. I don't know if you get this a lot, but I get a lot of people coming and saying, well, I'm this blood type, I'm that blood type. That's why you do better. That's why I have to have carbs. What would you say to people that are worried about their blood type as an individual and what that sort of says about what they can and can't eat?
Well, my good friend Richard Smith is type A, and according to that book that we may be referring to, he thrives on the things he shouldn't thrive on, and that happens all the time. So I've seen thousands of bloods, and it's hard to see how anyone could get a book out there and get people believing it, because you can't prove it, and there are many people that disprove it. So if you're a certain blood type and you're supposed to not do very well on meat, but do really well on the vegetarian diet, and the complete reverse is what you actually see, it's absolutely rubbish. So that's my answer to that. But you may believe it. You see, this is the thing. You can talk yourself into things, which shows the power of the mind, actually. You can say, well, I'm type A, so I'm going to do really well on a vegetarian diet. And you might for about 5 years, but your chickens will come home to roost eventually. So I wouldn't pick any of my nutrition based on my blood type, and certainly not from the phlebotomy side, because I've seen it. I've seen actual bloods and I've seen actual people, and the correlation between the blood types and what's good for them, there is none. This way of eating is good for whatever blood type.
Okay. Maybe you could take us through a typical day. Like, what's your routine, the kind of foods you eat and frequency, meals, and this kind of stuff?
Oh, right. My personal eating habits. Right. Okay. Yeah, I thought you was going to say as life as a coach, because there's no routine to that. I eat what I fancy when I want to eat it, and I stop when I'm full.
Cool.
If you look at a plate is a restriction that we've put on. It's a construct, isn't it? Right, I eat that, then I finish. Well, why is that? A lion doesn't get a ruler out and go, right, that's my meal for today. So I eat very intuitively, and I do try to get people to do this that I'm coaching. I mean, obviously a plate is a real thing, but you can put things on the plate and think, well, I've got to eat that now because I can't waste food. But also, when it's clear, does that mean you are full? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So, for instance, today's a bad day because I'm actually doing the blood test for a fasting experiment that I'm doing. So I haven't eaten since 6 o'clock last night. I don't fast that often. But a normal day would be possibly 5 eggs with 3 strips of bacon, all cooked in butter, I have Swiss water decaf coffee with a small amount of cream. If I want to improve my body composition, I wouldn't have the cream and coffee. It's decaf though, but it still makes a difference because of the cream. I'm not anti-cream, but I think it can tweak your body composition if you have too many cups of coffee, too much cream. But I enjoy it. I like that breakfast, so I will have that. Sometimes I have salmon rather than the bacon. Sometimes I will have the salmon and the bacon. and the scrambled eggs. But I do like to start with eggs. If you can't tolerate eggs, I do have meal plans with lots of suggestions for breakfast without eggs. But I make sure I'm properly full. So if I still feel like eating, then I will go and get maybe a burger patty or pork chop or something, put it in the air fryer, and away you go. There might be leftovers from the pan-fried beef from the night before, so I might have a little bit of that. I had that a couple of days ago where we had a roast, and then the bit that was left over, we put in the fridge and then chopped it up and added it to the breakfast. And then in the evening, it can be steak, it can be pork belly, it can be pork chops, roast leg of lamb, sardines, fresh sardines, or in tins actually sometimes, but mainly fresh, sea bass, salmon, chicken occasionally, not very often. I like chicken thighs with the skin on, ever such a lot in the air fryer. 10 minutes and you get the most amazing hearty meal. But I don't feel I get as much bang for my buck when it comes to chicken and turkey and the sort of poultry. I think duck is really nice. I love duck eggs as well. So yeah, maybe 2 meals a day. Again, I'm not overly bothered about the timings. I just eat when it's social. So when the dog eats and my wife eats, I eat. Very rarely eat on my own. And going out, boiled eggs, quite good. Bacon that's cooked up and put in the fridge and then cut up into little strips. I like that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I think that's it.
Yeah. What's your opinion on quality? How important do you think that weighs in when people are worried about, well, I can only afford sort of the barn eggs and the ground beef that's 20%, and maybe I need to add fat some way or another. What do you think in terms of results that you've seen with your clients or even in yourself with high quality versus the more kind of conventional stuff in the stores?
Even the inexpensive version of carnivore is light years better than the alternative. So if you're having barn eggs, apart from the ethical issue of those chickens being in the barn, if you're plant-based, you're killing more animals anyway, with the pesticides, herbicides, trapping and all that. So firstly, if it's an ethical thing, we'll talk about budget in a second. The ethics of being vegan or vegetarian, there aren't any, because monocropping is just bad for the planet and just bad for everything. So you're killing more animals eating that way without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, when we've looked at the carnage per acre, it's like 21 times more animals are killed eating vegan than it is being a carnivore. But anyway, so if it's an ethical thing, yes, I agree the barn eggs are not ethical. I would try not to eat them. If I was going to do anything, I'd try to put some money towards pasture. But that's nothing to do with quality, although there is a quality issue there as well. You will get better eggs from pasture free or free range, as we call it in the UK. And when it comes to beef, the grass-fed is better. But, if you get the beef from a supermarket and it is not the most expensive, you're still going to be better off than having a super cheap bowl of cereal. So you just have to weigh up what your budget is like. Now, if you can afford grass-fed, if you can afford free-range eggs, then fill your boots and do that, because you will get slightly better results. But you will get great results even from inexpensive carnivore and, canned salmon, tin sardines. You can do it. You can do carnivore on a budget, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, and still feel really much better than the alternative.
Nice. Yeah. I agree. I mean, in the beginning, I was definitely eating more of the conventional stuff. I had a lot of tin sardines and, like I say, the salmon, and I didn't know what eggs I was getting. It was just like whatever was cheapest. I didn't really know too much about this stuff. I was having the ground beef and stuff, and I've obviously gone towards a little bit more higher quality. And it's only since going back where I don't enjoy the experience of eating as much. That's just me. If I can all the time, I can afford it. I justify it because I don't do anything else with my money. And my health's my main priority. So I just kind of make it happen.
Yeah.
What have you got in the pipeline in terms of what you're working on and projects and things that are coming up?
Well, I'm doing a talk at the War on Health at the Easter weekend, so the end of March. That's a Sunday. And I'll be talking for an hour or just under, doing a presentation about the bloods. In May, I'm down at the Public Health Collaboration meeting there. I'm not actually speaking or anything. I'm just going to be there because, I like to find out what's going on, meet some of the people I've never met face to face before. Video wise, Rich and I have just done a really cool video about veganism against carnivore, which I've just taken off my channel because I want Rich to get more people going to his channel at the moment, just to bump up his subscribers. So I really do recommend you check that out. Richard Smith, by the way. We're going to carry on our live stream every single Sunday. We do that at 7 p.m. We do a live question and answer thing, completely free. And we also do one at 8 p.m. on Rumble for those that want the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. This Sunday, we've got Anthony Chafee doing a midday appearance, and we're doing a special live question and answer session on the Sunday in the middle of the day. Of course, the biggest thing is on the 7th of the 7th. It's the second annual original 24-hour live stream, which is something we did last year. Richard and I were the first people to do a carnivore keto live stream for 24 hours. I stood here for 24 hours and we had guests like Sean Baker, Kevin Stock, Lisa Wilderman, Dr. Kiltz, Chafee, just tons of guests popped in. Sabrina Salt, Dr. Sabrina Salt, she was good. I don't like doing this because I'm missing people out who were brilliant, but there was tons of brilliant people. We're doing it again, 7th of July, starts at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, finishes 9 a.m. on a Monday. And we've got just amazing guests, Philippa Vardia, Sarah Zaldivar, just guest after guest, and it's just going to be brilliant. So that's big. We enjoyed it last year. We didn't eat or drink for 24 hours, which when I was training and being my personal training certificate, wow, you can't do that. You've got to eat 6 times a day. Well, if I'd have been high carb, I would not have done a 24-hour live stream without having to eat all the time. But it was a piece of cake, or piece of steak, I should say, last year. Yeah. So, and I'm doing the audiobook version of the other book I've got, How to Be Carnivore. Can I show you that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is the other book, How to Be Carnivore. It's packed full of really simple advice. You can get that from my store. Hopefully Lee will put the link in there.
Yeah,
it's also available from Apple and Amazon. You have to go to Amazon for the paperback because of the printing costs. They're really big, but they take a big chunk of the money. So if you can get it from my store as an ebook, that would be much better. But anyway, so yeah, quite a busy year, I think.
Yeah, nice. Have you any other social media where we can find you? Of course, I'll pop everything in the description and low. And any other last words?
Yeah. Well, I think, my Instagram, you can get me on there, the UK Carnivore. Not the Carnivore UK. That's Podrick, who is great, by the way. So if you do that by accident, he's brilliant. So it's not a bad accident. My YouTube channel, I am on Twitter. I am on TikTok. I don't really put as much effort in as I should because those platforms, well, Twitter in particular, was bad at one point. It's much better now that Elon Musk has taken over. So a bit more free speech. I am on Facebook. Same thing, same problem. You can't talk properly on Facebook, but I've got a Facebook private group. And of course, the big thing that Richard Smith and I do is a thing called Skool, Skool, low carb Skool. We have a community there which is just packed full of free resources. It's quite good fun because every resource, we've got like a free keto course, and then we've got the 19 tips to be a supreme carnivore, and then we've got stuff about thyroid, and we've got stuff about weight loss and building muscle and all that. The more you interact on there, you get points and you get onto the leaderboard and you open up more and more stuff, basically. So there's lots of free PDFs and ebooks that back up many of the most popular YouTube videos that big producers have, put out there. So there's one by Ken Berry and Dr. Brownstein about thyroid. So I taken the transcript of that and made notes and put it into a book form. So if people say that's a great video, but so much, I've got to keep rewatching it. I've done that. So I've done the hard work, so you don't have to, so to speak. And that's a big deal. I think that's going to take off. And we also do a live question and answer every single Monday in there. at 5 p.m. So there's lots of free things that you can take part in.
Nice. Awesome. Well, look, Stephen, I do appreciate you coming on. If anyone hasn't subscribed, definitely go over and subscribe to Coach Stephen. He's got a really good channel, lots of informative videos out. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Lee, for having me on. It's been an honour and a privilege, mate.